Right, now then, so what we're doing today is we're drawing with a brush. Obviously if you've got paint, you can use paint, your watercolour paints, or if you've got some acrylic type of paints, water-based paints, I would thin them down a little bit with a little bit of water to make them nice and thin to draw with. Ink is obviously a traditional way of drawing. With a brush, but if you haven't got any of those things, then what do you use? So I'm going to show you today how to make some cheap, well, I suppose we would call it ink, but technically it's not ink. So as you can see, I've got some things here. Coffee. So this is instant coffee. I made it with hot water and then let it cool down. So I'll show you there. Look, you can see it's there. So just a couple of spoons of instant coffee and just a little bit of water and mix it in quite thoroughly. But like I say, make sure it's cool before you use it. The other thing, look on here, is tea bags. So look in the cup there. Can you see the difference in those? That one looks, wait a minute, I can't point. This one looks a bit darker than that one. This one's a bit orangey. And then there's this type of coffee, filter type coffee. So as you can see in there, look, it's very similar to the instant coffee by the look of things. But I'm going to show you on here. So I'll put that out the way. Obviously, if you're dealing with boiling water, always be careful or get somebody to do it for you. So I've got a bit of, okay, so we're going to go to this camera. So this is the instant coffee. So that's this one, which you can't see, so you can now, which is this one. And what you do is you dip your brush in, tip it on the side a little bit, so because you don't want too much. I'll show you what it looks like if you put too much on. So if you put too much on, you get this bubble. So if you just tip it on the side, and then you can make these nice little marks. And as you can see, it's quite pale. So you need to kind of go over the top of it a little bit. So if you do this type of bubble, get a little piece of kitchen towel or tissue or toilet paper or something and just dib on, and it picks it up. Now if you've got the time and you can wait and you leave those bubbles like that, it goes like this, so you get like an edge round it. But it's just like using watercolour paints. The more layers you put on, the darker it gets. And so this is completely dry, this bit. Well, on this bit, I'll do it on there. Can you see? It just gets darker. So it is just, and then you can just fill up what you've just done to make it even darker. Just a little dot. Always have some water. And always clean your brush. So that's the instant coffee. So that's that one. And as you can see, there's not a huge difference, but the tea makes more orangey marks. Now that was a couple of tea bags in there, and I left it until it just all went cold and then squeezed them out and did that. So, but if the stronger your tea, my tea's quite weak, but the stronger you have your tea, the darker the colour, obviously. And then the filter coffee, that's this one, is quite gritty. Can you see there's little bits in there? I don't think you can because you're looking at it from quite a distance off, but I wonder if I can bring it closer to the camera if it stays in focus. So it's there. So can you see there's got a little bit grits, but that's not so bad. That's like a it's like a texture on it. Me personally, so I'm going to move that one out of the way. And I'm going to move the tea out of the way, because I personally like the instant coffee. I just think it's a bit darker, and it's got less. I didn't clean my brush, did I? I've got the bits from the ground coffee in there now. There we go, that's better. So yeah, and that's now what we're going to do is I've got I printed this off because, like I say, I don't want to get ink on my posh book. So I've printed these off from my book, just so I've got an idea of the trees, and I thought I would just copy. I will copy this one, I think. But before we do that, I want to show you these. Now these are just ordinary lolly sticks. So when if you have a lolly or a ice cream or something, don't chuck your stick away. Always keep it. Wash it. It's important to wash it. And then if you can cut them down to different shapes, like these are. So I'll show you really quickly. Now again, if you're allowed to use a knife, then be very, very careful. If you're not, ask somebody else. And gradually just peel it back. Now in my day, lolly sticks weren't shaped like this. Lolly sticks were all just straight, like the Crafts lolly sticks you can buy. So, but this was a Toblerone. This was a Toblerone ice cream. So just peel it back. And don't try and do too much all at once. Obviously I have quite a sharp, strong knife. There we go. And leave a bit of a point. So I'm just going to take a tiny fraction off there, like that. And the reason I'm showing you a lolly stick, always remember, put your blade away if it's a retractable blade. The reason I'm showing you a lolly stick is because Vincent van Gogh used to use what's called a reed pen, and that was made out of a reed that grows in the Sard or in Sard rivers or ponds, and they'd cut that down, and it's quite a hard stem, and they'd shape it into a pen shape, and then they would put a little slit down, and the slit would hold the ink. Now obviously that doesn't, I've tried that with these and it just doesn't work. You might as well just use it as a stick. So just make a point. So you could make a point out of anything, and as you can see from this one, I've already had a go. And these can you see that these marks are very similar? Obviously not the same, but similar. And I've found if you just leave your stick in there to soak up a little bit first, then tap it, and then you can make these marks. So that's that. Where's my brush? Let's just dry my brush. So we've got a full. So you've got the same type of, but because it's a lot bigger is the brush, you make bigger marks. So that's how to use a brush or a stick. So I'm gonna copy this. I'll put that out of the way. we'll see how we get on. Now obviously when you're making, can you see all these sticks are quite different, but look, I'm going to just use the one I've just made. But I'm going to use the brush first. Put that there. I'm going to use the brush first to get started, because these are quite thick marks and then they're quite thinner marks up there. So I'm going to use the brush for the thick marks and then the stick for the thinner marks. So that's roughly there. And these are all sort of wavy. Now, what you've got to remember is trees grow upwards. So do your marks upwards. If you do your marks downwards, you end up with a pointy bit at the bottom and a thick bit at the top. But with trees, it's the opposite way around, isn't it? Because they grow upwards. Oh, a bit too much there. Where's the other side? It's about here. There. So what I'm going to do is draw that square in, because I'm getting confused because the piece of paper I'm using is bigger than the square. So it's roughly like that. And can you see I've already gone wrong because it's, but that doesn't matter. So I'm going to just carry on. I'm not going to stop. Rightio then, so this is the finished and it's dried now, so I'll show you on that one. I wonder if I can get it a bit closer to you, to the camera for you. There we go, so you can see if it's in focus, you can see that. So yeah, I mean obviously it doesn't look exactly like that, but it's not meant to look exactly like it. And I think it's really important to try different techniques. And if you're copying other artists, it's a very good exercise in seeing the different types of lines that they make and things. As Salvador Dali said, you have to do cubism to get through cubism. And that obviously doesn't mean you have to do every single art style in the world, but if there's something that you're very interested in, then give it a go and just have a copy.